I've been asked a few different times now for my thoughts on the Sacramento River Cats potentially playing in Oakland, either temporarily while the A's are in Sacramento, or maybe full time. That is, of course, because Brody Brazel recently made a video on this situation. It was more a thought experiment than anything else. It was entertaining, interesting, but also just a complete fantasy. The River Cats are not going to Oakland in any way, shape, or form. Before we get into that, though, there's something here that the video missed and something that I've actually covered here on my channel in the video that talks about the saga that was Sacramento's AAA team in the 1970s. This situation already played out. Those who do not learn from history, those who do not study history, are doomed to repeat it. We have already seen what happens when a minor league ball club from Sacramento goes to play quote unquote temporarily in the Bay Area. It ends poorly, famously so for all parties involved. In the 1970s, the then Solons went down to San Jose for a couple of seasons. They were going to play there temporarily while a new stadium was built in Sacramento. That never happened. The Solons, who were then known as the San Jose Missions, ended up being sold to someone else. They moved to Ogden. Eventually, they end up in Edmonton. But yeah, the situation ended poorly for everyone involved. The San Jose team that was leasing the Solons made zero money because of the high cost involved and not being able to generate enough revenue. Meanwhile, here in the City of Trees, well, people sort of just forgot about baseball when it left. They didn't really care about the team anymore. And yeah, that was it for the Solons. That was it for baseball for decades until 1999 when the Steelhead show up. And we'll get to them in just a moment. Obviously, the circumstances in present day are different. Sacramento didn't have a major league team playing here, nor did they have a stadium in place. But again, if the River Cats are going to go play anywhere else temporarily, the idea that folks are just going to come in and welcome them back with open arms, I don't think that's going to happen. In fact, it seems probably nothing more than a pipe dream. Hell, as we have seen from the River Cats over the past few years, their marketing outreach has been extremely poor. Their attendance continues to really just sort of stagnate. It's been stagnant since the pandemic. They don't really do a lot. Many Sacramentans probably don't even realize the River Cats are still in town. The idea that they're going to disappear for 3-4 years, come back, and everyone's just going to flock to see them, I don't see that happening. The most likely scenario in that case, should the River Cats go play somewhere else, is that they would return to 3,000, 4,000 a night crowds if they were lucky and end up being sold or moved on. Because Sutter Health Park, even with these quote-unquote upgrades, look at what the A's are doing. This is not a new facility. It's not a great facility. It's perfectly fine for AAA baseball. It's going to be wildly disappointing for Major League Baseball. However, something's going to need to be done with it moving forward. That aside, though, people in Sacramento aren't going to flock to see a lesser quality of baseball they weren't really particularly excited about. And for whatever reason, Vivek Ranadive has shown no desire to market the team, to get the River Cats name, the brand out there. It just sort of exists. It's a fun time. Like, I really enjoy going to River Cats games still, but I think they have sort of lost what made them such a hot ticket, so popular in the 2000s and 2010s. I mean, there was a time when the River Cats were extremely popular in Sacramento, and it feels like it's been some time now. Maybe that's just the change in sporting demographics, the change in consumer habits, whatever. But I think a big part of that is what you've seen since Vivek Ranadive has purchased the River Cats, is that for whatever reason, they just think that they can exist and that's good enough for them. They have a fairly decent sized season ticket pool or season ticket holder pool, and I guess that's what they're thinking on all of this has been. It's like, well, we have our X number of season tickets. That's good enough for us. Why are we going to market? Why are we going to spend money trying to get single game sales? If people are going to come, they're going to come. If they're not going to come, they're not going to come. So be it. It's his business. He can run as he sees fit. The point is that team will face an uphill struggle to regain a foothold in the market should the A's leave for wherever they end up if they're out of town. Anyway, let's just assume, hypothetically, Vivek says, you know what, I'm willing to punt on the River Cats in Sacramento while the A's are in town. The agreement then would take a different shape. It's not like he's going to want anything to do with the team. He's not going to want to be on the hook for rent or costs or anything. Now, if we go back to that 1970s arrangement with the Sacramento Solons in San Jose, what happened was the then Solons owner basically leased out his charter for a AAA ball club, something that all minor league teams sort of have. They have that agreement in place with Major League Baseball that gives them permission to have that team, that agreement, as part of the 120 or so minor league ball clubs in the pyramid. What I would imagine happening wouldn't be that Vivek's going to own the team and pay rent somewhere else. I'd imagine he would just lease out or maybe give that charter to someone else for them to assume all of the operating costs, the rent, and all of that stuff, under the assumption, much like we saw in San Jose, that they could make money off it. Now, whether that's the case, I don't know. But yeah, it's not going to be Vivek going and just running the team somewhere else. It wouldn't make sense for him to do that. It would be, he would essentially lease his minor league franchise out. Now, it would be basically, I would assume it would just be the team itself, the players, that connection to the parent ball club, the San Francisco Giants. I don't think he would send staff or anything out like that, because again, like, it would, I mean, maybe he does, but it would be a really messy situation if he does. It would be easier just to do a clean break, like, here you go, you're running this minor league ball club. Now, I don't actually know if that's possible or not under the current agreements between Major and Minor League Baseball, but let's be real, Major League Baseball doesn't give a crap about anything at this point. It's probably willing to let anyone do anything if it makes an owner money. With that being said, who's stepping up in Oakland to bring in a AAA ball club that's not only affiliated with the Giants, but also one that is helping John Fisher? I think that is a laughable proposition. Don't give me this is a market hungry for sports. This is also a market that knows full and well what the Giants and John Fisher has done to it, and by proxy, Vivek Ranadive. So the idea they're just going to embrace the River Cats. No, more importantly though, is you're missing Fresno. The city of Fresno has a AAA ballpark already to go, one that's actually newer than Sutter Health Park, by the way. Fresno has a AAA quality ballpark just sitting there hosting single A baseball. I've also heard that Fresno has pretty much an ownership group in place. In fact, it seems like they're just waiting for the next AAA team to hit the market so they can buy it. Rumors and innuendo are quite different than reality. There is a belief that Fresno's pretty much looking to get back in the AAA game. In fact, that stadium not having AAA baseball is one of the biggest travesties to have merged from the minor league baseball reorganization. So if even Vivek were to say lease the River Cats for 3 to 4 seasons, I'm guessing Fresno would be the market and have the structure in place to make such a deal work out. Oakland, who's doing it? They don't have a minor league setup. I mean, the Ballers are independent league, so they're not going to know the name of the game as far as it relates to all of Major League Baseball's stupid rules and regulations. This isn't the 1970s, 1980s where owners could just freely come and go and enter markets. I mean, minor league baseball was kind of like a traveling carnival show back then. Those days are long gone. Everything needs to be approved by the MLB commissioner's office. Do you really see Rob Manfred and whoever is overseeing the minor league baseball department at this point? I mean, you'll hear teams complain just about the absolute pain in the ass, the corporate bureaucracy that now comes with running a minor league franchise. So to say you're going to build something from the ground up in Oakland for 3 to 4 years, I just don't see it happening. Fresno, though, they have that infrastructure in place. They can scale it up to host a AAA team probably in a few weeks if they needed to. The other situation, I guess, would be if Vivek sells the River Cats, and that brings about a whole bunch of other things. Then again, though, I think if the team hits the market, the team is going to get sold. The River Cats are available to buy. Someone from Fresno is going to make that play first. There may also be a few other markets. I mean, who really knows? Diamond Baseball Holdings obviously pulls all the strings in minor league baseball. So it's really what they want, right? It's not so much what owners want or what markets want. Like, you are pretty much going to need to be approved by Diamond Baseball Holdings to get your say in what is essentially now nothing more than a mafia that is minor league baseball. They, of course, already have their grubby mitts dirty playing the eternal game of 3-card Monte with Modesto and their new ballpark being built in Ontario, California. That situation's a total mess, by the way. Lease Visalia got saved in all of that. So the idea that someone from Oakland, even if they wanted to buy the River Cats, should they hypothetically be available for sale? I don't know. I don't really think DBH sees Oakland is a place it wants to be. If you look at the markets it's going to, they all share some similar characteristics, and they ain't what Oakland offers, if you catch my drift. And if you don't, you know what? Hell, I'll just spell it out for you. DPH is looking for local governments to give them handouts. That is what their end goal is. And if you don't want to play ball with them, they'll take their minor league setup somewhere else. Now, of course, DBH doesn't own all of the teams in minor league baseball, but it sure as hell looks like it's going to be that way in the near future. At last count, they held, I think, more than 25% of all minor league base. They've just been acquiring all these different minor league teams. You can see the consolidation coming. You can see what their end goal here, what the end goal is for Major League Baseball. Returning to the question at hand, would the River Cats play in Oakland? No, there's less than a 0% chance. This is not going to happen in no way, shape, or form. It makes absolutely no sense. Nothing about it seems even remotely feasible. There's always the people out there saying, oh, never say never. Well, we can say never here. Vivek Ranadive isn't going to incur a bunch of extra expenses just to have them not play at Sutter Health Park. And if someone was going to be willing to lease them for a couple of years, hypothetically speaking, it's going to be Fresno. Finally, my concern for the River Cats is a long-term concern. Here's a situation that I believe is likely to play out. The A's come, they crater the River Cats attendance even further. I mean, what is the best case scenario for the AAA ball club in Sacramento next year? 2,500 a game, maybe 3,000 a game. Maybe they just give away tickets. I don't know what their strategy is, but you're letting someone with a better product come in and compete with you. That's a terrible business decision, and it's one that I feel is going to come back to haunt them. Remember what happened when the River Cats first came to Sacramento? There was a little small independent league team named the Sacramento Steelheads. They came in with a lot of fanfare because Sacramento hadn't had baseball in 20-ish years or so. They played that first season. It wasn't great. I think people didn't really like independent league baseball, at least at that time in Sacramento. They played out on the Sac City College campus. It was something, but yeah, the River Cats moved in, and the Steelheads pretty much had to hightail it down to the old Nut Tree site. Although parts of that old stadium at the Nut Tree, I believe, were saved because it was a precast stadium. So I think parts of that actually are in Reading, like maybe at Simpson University. So that stadium survived. The team did not. As for the River Cats, as I said earlier, I just don't know if people are going to be interested in AAA baseball by the time the A's take their shit show on the road and move their grift somewhere else. Especially considering Sutter Health Park will be damn near 30 years old by the time that happens. You're going to have a AAA team playing in a stadium that was built in like 8 months on the cheap. Maybe this ends up being Vivek Ranadive's play all along. Maybe this was his long-term vision. It wasn't to bring in the A's because he thought they're going to stay, because they're not going to stay, because Sacramento doesn't have anything resembling a stadium plan, and there are other markets that are far up on the possible relocation food chain. This idea that Sacramento is going to keep the A's because they happen to be here. Yeah, good luck with that with your no stadium plans, and you're probably needing 10 years to get anything completed, and that's if you started today. However, for the Kings owner, well, he extracted plenty of value out of Sutter Health Park. He still owns the land. He still owns the site. He can sell off the minor league baseball team, which has increased pretty noticeably in value, whether the buyer's DBH or someone else. Maybe it ends up being in Fresno. I don't know. That could be it. It could just be he just cashes out on minor league baseball. Sacramento sold up the river, and that's it. He just develops condos or an office building, or maybe you just build a stupid another pyramid over there. In fact, he could maybe by 2030 divest from Sacramento entirely. Look, Ranadive is in the buying and selling businesses business. He's not this astute developer. He's not really a product guy. He's made his money through buying businesses and either incorporating them into something and selling it on later.
You told Forbes magazine, we move more information in a day than Twitter does in a month. How do you do that? So my software is the backbone for 4,000 of the world's largest companies. And so if my software stopped working, the banks would stop functioning, the exchanges would go down, the airlines would stop, the phone companies would stop, many of the web businesses would stop.
This guy isn't here to develop something, he's here to flip something. And this looks like the end game here could be his last flip. He sells the River Cats, he sells the Kings, he makes billions of dollars, and who knows what's in it for us in Sacramento? I mean, is it a future without minor league baseball? The Kings are here to stay because they have a lease with the Golden One Center, and I think people would be willing to buy that, invest in that. But yeah, are people really going to buy a AAA ball club with a 30-year-old stadium, given the absolutely disdain for old stadiums sports owners seem to have? Does he think he's going to get funding for a new AAA stadium after that? The real question is not, would the River Cats go and play in Oakland? That's a thought experiment. It's a fun hypothetical to sort of chew the fat on. However, the question people need to be asking in Sacramento and Northern California, is Vivek Ranadive already plotting his exit strategy for minor league baseball and maybe his Sacramento sports holdings as a whole? It's certainly something worth considering. Thank you for watching this video. If you would like to learn more about that entire weird minor league baseball saga that saw AAA baseball leave Sacramento in the 70s, video upper right hand corner of your screen, and for a look on where California's capital could potentially build a baseball stadium, why don't you check out the video in the lower right hand corner of your screen. Until next time, I am Cheyenne Hollis. This is the Touchback, and as always, hashtag take it out to the 25.